Today we have the extraordinary reading, first reading gospel. They're carefully put together, but also they're rich and beautiful, powerful, and in a sense terrifying as well. Maybe you've experienced it over the years as you listen to these stories. I mean, obviously we have the apostles there before Jesus and are just dumbstruck, in awe, but also there's a sense of when things are beyond our experience and our understanding or whatever, they're terrifying, right? I mean, it's just sort of, it elicits a response in us that goes beyond just sort of apprehension or whatever, or fear, and when things get so big, it's terrifying. Then you have the experience of Abraham in that first reading, and Abraham is there, and we hear that awful command from God, not just that he's supposed to go to the mountain, but there he's supposed to sacrifice his son. And we all draw back. We want to run away. And it's hard to reconcile this in our minds all the time, from time to time, I get that question from people. They just can't reconcile this in their minds, in their hearts. And they say, how can the good God require this or be asking this? And so when we encounter a God or God like that and we can't resolve it, we want to run away. We want to say, well, if he asks me to do something, I might have to say no. How can I? So that's an important thing for us to meditate on and resolve in our minds and our hearts. So good luck resolving that. I'll see you later. One of the ways, I think one of the most beautiful ways that I resolve it is this. God had chosen Abraham, of course, before he was born, just like he chose us before we're born to do his will, what he wants of us. But he had particularly chosen Abraham to have a relationship with him that would be a sign to all the people, right? That he invited him close and he shared with him his plans, his intention, and his heart. And in order to sort of move God move Abraham from just one of the people and someone who's influenced by his culture and his family and all those kinds of things, he has to, in that relationship, he has to begin to move him, right? And so literally he moves him. And we know much of the story of Abraham when he's called out from his native place and his native people, and he's called to follow the Lord. God says, I'm going to give you. And we see that repeated throughout history where God is saying he's sort of calling us out, calling his people out and says, come with me. Because Abraham was suffering and laboring under the things that all of his people, and we could as well, but suffering from ignorance and a lack of knowledge of God and what God wanted for him. And so he was just like all the people just flailing about. But he had a good heart. He wanted and he longed for God. And he wanted to do what God wanted. And so God, in his mercy, reaches out to Abraham and says this, let me teach you. And so he has that relationship with Abraham, and by that, over the years, they are bound to one another. Bit by bit, God reveals his heart to Abraham. what is right and fitting to do, what are the good things to do, what are the things that he must do, right? And each time Abraham says to God, yes, it makes their relationship stronger. And all the while, God is teaching Abraham to leave behind himself. You know, what happened with Adam and Eve? What happens with them is that they say no to God. You know, I'm not going to do. And it leaves its mark on us forever, as it did Abraham. But every time Abraham says yes, he draws closer to God. He's finding peace and fulfillment and happiness. This is the thing that we don't necessarily understand because we're not in it, but if we're in that kind of a relationship with God, we understand completely. We understand fully. We are blessed by God, whom we speak with, and he speaks to us each day. I don't need to go on a great length, but at times you'll hear me say that, you know, sort of in my own life. I find this great peace and joy, even in the midst of chaos, confusion, or challenges, or whatever, you know, from inside and from outside. I find in little ways that God is leading me through not just my life, but my day. If I choose to be with God, well, then he's right there. And that is an amazing thing. And day by day, we are growing closer together. And hopefully it's a bond that cannot be broken. Even by my own sinfulness, my own stupidity, my bad sense of humor. It could never be broken by my faults and failings, because God is always good and true and loving and kind and generous and all those things that I have found him over the years. God is trustworthy. And bit by bit, he is teaching me to trust in him, so that I too might be trustworthy, worthy of his trust. And so the bond grows. We see it more explicit in the Transfiguration, this beautiful event, a powerful event. We're always worth our meditation as we do that, hopefully each Thursday when we say the Rosary and we meditate on that mystery of the Transfiguration. But here we have this example. Jesus takes them up the mountain. Come with me, and so they go. Right? These closest ones, come with me, and he go. And there he is transfigured, but what it is a bit of who he is comes out, and the glory of that is shocking and surprising. And that's just a little bit of his glory shines through. Jesus himself is more beautiful, more powerful, more glorious than the sun. The sun would be dim compared to the glory of Jesus. It says that in the book of Revelation that we will need no sun or any other light, because he will be our light. And you know how we need the light. Between yesterday and today, like, oh, where's the sun? It happens, you know, in our wintertime. And then when the sun comes out, we just go to the window. At least I do. You go to the window, sort of stand there. You're like, you feel like somebody's cat, you know. Standing in the light, But it's a beautiful meditation. Lord, if I need sunshine that much, how much more do I need you? And how much more do you give me than the sun itself? But anyway, there Jesus is in his glory, and they see that, and they're terrified, astounded, confused, but edified. There we have the fulfillment of all the prophets, Moses and Elijah speaking to the Lord. So they say, well, it's true. He must be the Messiah. There's another example of it. How important he is. And then the voice comes and says, listen to him. This is important. Listen to him. And in showing us his glory, we are attracted to him like we're attracted to the sun on a sunny day. We're attracted to him. We're going to need that. The church teaches us we're going to need that. We're going to need that assurance of what he gives us, how he nourishes us, feeds us at the core of our being, but then also how he instructs us. Because so often we want to draw back, right? He has said to the apostles and his followers, take up your cross and follow me. And they will have a brutal example of what that means. Jesus, undergoing his passion, is so beaten and reviled that his own mother wouldn't recognize him. They so alter his appearance by brutality and violence that they would not recognize him. And not just his face, but from the top of his head to the bottom of his feet. He is a sign of all the sins of the people poured out, mocked, reviled, abused. And he says, take up your cross, and we would run away. There would be no way for us to stand with him like we would imagine of Abraham. But Abraham has a relationship with God, a loving, trusting relationship with God, so that he knows that God would never, ever, ever harm him. How can that be? God has said to him, sacrifice your son. But Abraham is not relying on his own understanding. You see the depths of that surrender, the completeness of that surrender on Abraham's part, how God has led him day by day by day, so that no fear, anxiety, worry, or horror can keep him from doing God's will. In all things, he knows that God will provide. Life may be difficult, challenging, overwhelming, beyond our understanding. How are we going to get through this? But in all things, Abraham has learned to trust, to have that kind of unshakable faith in God. And that's why he's known down through the ages and is in truth our Father in faith. Makes me wonder if God ever whispered into his heart something he could never even understand, but when he promised him descendants as many as the stars, did he ever whisper that unthinkable and saying, you will be the father to my son? See the blessings that God has for those who trust him. And so it is with us. When we face the scandal of the cross in our own lives, and we just say, this is impossible. How can I understand this? What the Lord is asking of me, and I know He's asking it of me. This cross, this difficulty, this pain, that I have to surrender it all to Him, that I have to go through it with Him. He's asking me to do this so that I can be transformed, so that I can be transfigured. And I don't understand it. I don't understand the process. I don't know how this is possible. But in that relationship of trust, we simply say, yes, Lord. And He whispers to our hearts promises that we cannot even understand. Wild things, crazy things, things that people would mock and laugh at us for. You will be like gods. You will have within you the very life of God, so that you will shine like the stars in the sky. May we count on God's promises and trust in His words, His commands, when He calls us to the cross.